coming to get you, Barbara.
Hey folks, Todd Staruch, the Horror Nerd here at the New Jersey HorrorCon and Film Festival on a snowy Friday. I am sitting here with one of the stars of maybe one of the most iconic horror films of all time, Night of the Living Dead, Mr. Russ Streiner. Russ, how are you?
I'm doing great, Todd. How about you?
Fantastic, just dealing with the snow like everybody else.
Well, thanks for stopping by to say hello to us.
Well, thank you for taking a few minutes. Speaking strictly as a horror fan myself, obviously, Night of the Living Dead is probably one of the most iconic horror films of all time. Can you just tell the viewers just a little bit about your experience in making the film?
Sure enough. Well, back in the late 60s, George Romero and I had a production company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And by the time the late 60s rolled around, we had all the equipment we needed to do our first, what we called real movie. We had been doing TV commercials and business films and that kind of thing. And Night of the Living Dead was our first attempt at doing a feature film, along with John Russo, George Romero, my brother Gary Streiner, and a group of us from Pittsburgh. George Romero and John Russo collaborated on the script. I produced the film along with a fellow by the name of Carl Hardman, who plays Harry Cooper in the film, the much hated Harry Cooper. In real life, Carl was an absolute charming prince of a fellow. But his character, people didn't like him too much, which is a testament to what a good actor he is, I guess. But now the film was filmed in 1967 and released in 1968. So this year is its 50th anniversary. Commemorated with our good friends at the Museum of Modern Art, and now part of the Criterion Collection, the Blu-ray, and I guarantee you, Night of the Living Dead looks better, sounds better than it has ever before. It's an absolutely gorgeous 4K restoration of the film. We're very, very proud of it, and thanks to the Museum of Modern Art, the George Lucas Foundation, the Martin Scorsese's Film Foundation, and the Celeste Bardos Foundation helped us with the restoration, which my brother Gary and George Romero were very, very deeply involved in the restoration. George, of course, before he passed away.
That is fantastic. I had the pleasure of meeting George at a couple of conventions over the years, and I'm very glad that I did. Did it ever, when you guys were making the movie, did you, in your imagination, have any idea that 50 years later it would still have the impact that it does?
We had no idea that our modest little film would become a film that people would be talking about 50 years later. And let's face it, the film is going to outlive all of us. So we had no idea that it would capture the hearts, minds, and souls of so many horror fans.
And it really has. I mean, it really set the stage for the modern zombies genre. We wouldn't have The Walking Dead without Night of the Living Dead.
Well, that's true. And as a matter of fact, on this very Blu-ray and DVD, the Criterion Collection, Frank Darabont, who was very instrumental in pulling together The Walking Dead, made some very, very complimentary remarks on one of the extras on this particular Blu-ray.
Russ, do you do a lot of these fan conventions? And if so, what is it about them that gets you to keep doing them?
I do a fair number of conventions, and the answer to the question is very simple. It's a great opportunity to meet the people who have made Night of the Living Dead a classic. We made the best film we could, but it's the worldwide fans that have made it, 50 years and going strong.
Awesome. If being an independent filmmaker myself, if there was one piece of advice you could give to an up-and-coming filmmaker who wanted to grab his friends and put together a movie and try to get it in front of people, what one piece of advice do you think you would give?
To narrow it down to one piece of advice is a little bit tough. But
Feel free to elaborate.
And I think that it absolutely requires, it's incumbent upon the producer, the director, to number one, be good storytellers. Make sure that you're telling a good story with characters that people want to see, whether they like them or hate them. Make sure that the characters are rich and robust. And then get it done. I'm sure that we could scour this country and probably the world and find probably millions of started and uncompleted films. No one is ever going to see it if you don't finish it. So my two pieces of advice would be good, solid story, and make sure you get it finished so somebody can decide whether they like it or not. A half-finished film is pretty hard to decide whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. Sage advice, people, from Johnny from Night of the Living Dead. Russ, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time.
Quite welcome.
It's a pleasure to meet you. In the end, I'm a horror fan at heart, and I saw this movie. My parents sent me to the boys' club in my town at the age of like 9 for a Halloween party, and this was the movie that they decided to show. So that is why I am the way I am today. So I have you to thank for it. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Russ Streiner, and we will see you at the next interview.